30. We good? My clock says 5:30. Good. Board of Aldermen work session is now called to order. First item on the agenda is the joint discussion with the Board of Aldermen and the EDC. Gina, what are we doing here?
All right. Well, I will open it up and give some background, and then I will turn it over to Alicia and the rest of the EDC. So over the past year, the EDC has reviewed the city's strategic plan and comprehensive plan to look over goals and priorities that they want to focus on. And really, we're focusing on the strengthened business and economic development pillar, which is a key area in both plans. We've kind of assigned different areas of interest through marketing and tourism, and also industrial development of people looking kind of where industrial areas are still able to be developed in Smithville. And we've had many discussions about different goals. So they are going to talk about some of the action items and accomplishments that they've had so far, and seek any feedback from the board on if they should be working on anything else. So I'll turn it over to Alicia.
Thanks.
The mic's over by Erica. I think she should start with the chamber update. Isn't that how you start the EDC? Chamber update, school update. All right, go for it.
So, and stop me if anybody wants to interject anything. I'll just kind of summarize some of our accomplishments so far. We have discussed murals for downtown. We hosted the MU extension. They gave us a little bit of guidance. They're putting together a type of toolkit for us to use. But the EDC kind of turned that over to Smithville Main Street District. And specifically Adam has kind of taken the lead on that. We prioritized updating our current city website with more information on the economic development page, and provided some brochure type materials to campers at Smiths Fork Campground. They have a QR code, right, as well as the website that takes them to the landing page on the city's website to drive them to local amenities. The city has partnered with the Chamber of Commerce to host lunch and learns. And we are currently scheduling the South Employment Overlay District engagement meeting. So that's really exciting. So we have our upcoming goals, and then those would be create a marketing campaign strategy for tourism and development. Kind of also along those lines, review the need of personnel or a vendor to provide marketing services for the city. Review opportunities to leverage off the lake. Is this cutting out? I feel like it's cutting out, sorry.
No, it's fine.
For economic development, explore Airbnb visitor data.
Can we change that to STR so we're not calling out one company? Thank you.
STR. Okay, we'll correct that. And the website development, just continue on that to make it a one-stop shop for tourism and development. So specifically, the EDC was kind of looking for a little more guidance as far as if there's anything that we should be working on in the short term and long term, in addition to our upcoming goals and action items. And kind of wanted to get from the Board of Aldermen what your vision is over the next 2, 5, 10 years. That way we can all make sure that we're focusing on the same thing that the board sees for the city in the future.
Thank you.
Did I cover everything from our side?
Anyone wants to add anything?
Okay.
Adam, seriously, nothing? Come on. I know you got something. I saw
I
it.
wasn't going to, but
Saw it.
He's the all bite.
so she discussed marketing strategy. So at the next EDC, I'm going to bring up an idea I ran by Alicia earlier this week about possibly leveraging some of our immigrant business owners and find out whether or not they know people that are interested in the World Cup. And I already spoke to the Donut Palace owners about this just kind of randomly. And I was like, do you know anybody going to the World Cup? And he was like, 2. So there might be something there, but we have to kind of flesh it out and then talk about marketing, whether we want to do like a targeted or if we're doing like a a broad-based marketing, or if we want to try to actually target certain demographics to bring them over for the World Cup. So
Yeah.
that's something I'll be bringing up at the next EDC we can get into.
Yeah, I have a briefing August 23rd on World Cup, because it is, if we're not thinking about World Cup, we should, whatever else we're thinking about, we should probably put on hold a little bit for when it comes to short-term stuff.
And that goes into the marketing piece.
Yeah,
And that
well, we
will-
won't know also countries until they announce, but some people will travel regardless, but we won't know until they actually announce who's playing where and when. But we should still think of the ways the region's leveraging that, because they're thinking transport everything, right? Do we have a place for people to get on the interim transit here, things like that? So, the school district might be a good hub, or the Price Chopper development, or someplace for people to hop on and park, because they're gonna be pretty big games. Appreciate you thinking about that one. Anything from anyone else on the EDC board? Go for it. Oh, you're on the EDC. You can't talk about it.
Yeah. No, I think that one of the things that we're really trying to do is align and measure through the comprehensive plan, as Alicia and Gina alluded to. Metrics is a big deal today, as you know, and certainly we've got budgetary stuff to talk about for next year, and there's always priorities, but one of those priorities is going to be a software program that would allow us to have some metrics measured from those. And I don't, Gina, if you just want to high level it for the board. I know we talked a little bit out in retreat, but.
So there's a company called Place Your AI, and it's similar kind of in the realm of Replica, but instead of replicating the data, it is actually like real time. I think there might be a 48-hour delay for us to see it on our dashboard. But you can really drill down into like individual businesses of what kind of demographics, where people are coming from to visit Smithville, how long they're staying, are they going to other places? And then we can even kind of make a geo area. So we could map Main Street District. We could map some other business districts throughout Smithville. We could do the lake and capture more out of city limit data as well, and try to drive people into city limits to visit places and other amenities. And really get more specific in the categories. So with Replica, it included like gas stations, grocery stores in the same category as retail shopping. So that wasn't really giving us a clear picture of actual retail data. So this will be a lot more granular and useful, I think, for us to use as the EDC and the city in general. And we can also view traffic patterns, so that'll be helpful for potential grant applications in the future, and just kind of understanding how people are coming to Smithville, and why they're coming here. So very excited for that.
It's always, thank you, Gina. It's always scary to know that folks have data points, but I heard a statistic the other day, and that by the time a 13-year-old today has used their cell phone, there's over 78 million data points on that 13-year-old. So it's part of our life, unfortunately, unless we completely go to a flip phone and.
Yes. And it is all aggregate, so we don't see anyone's individual information on that. So just want to put that disclaimer.
But there are data points that are valuable.
Right, and when we set the direction for our strategic plan 6 years ago, and even the board prior to that with priority-based budgeting, that it was discussions of data and data-driven decision-making, not just if it feels right. So I think it's moving in the right direction. I appreciate you guys serving on the board. As you know, and just like the Parks Board, you guys are advisory to this board, so you don't have a lot of spending authority or decision-making powers, which I know can be frustrating at times, but the advice you do provide is valuable to us, just because you don't see it all the time, and I do like having these joint meetings. I think the biggest thing is getting through that punch list that we have in the comprehensive plan, but we are coming up on a refresh. I mean, when we talked about building the strategic plan, it was a 5-year timeline, and we're getting close to even the 2030 date that's set in the comp plan. So I think the biggest thing you guys could start thinking about is who you're going to pull into those conversations, so we can make sure we have enough people It is a citizen-based strategic plan. It wasn't this board coming up with it, contrary to popular belief, or some minority belief. I don't know which way it goes there. But we had, 1,000 people contribute to the parks plan, and many sessions, and many of those teenagers that were in the pack are now working adults, right? So pulling them back into the conversation. I've already talked to the district about making sure that their history classes, like we did last time, or social studies classes, are pulled into the strategic plan as well. But also facing the reality that we have multiple school districts within our borders now, and including them, including more civic groups, even though they're starting to shrink, pulling in some more community stakeholders to those conversations to make sure it's not the same people in the room at every strategic plan meeting. Alicia and I are in the same room for multiple different things because we show up, and some others as well. So I'm sure that Carol just gets tired of seeing us when it comes to school and city and everything else. Yeah.
So I had a question as we're coming up on the review, like there are parts of that comprehensive strategic plan that I've looked at that definitely need to be redone. I think
Well, it's not a review. You write a new one every 5 years. I mean,
Okay.
you write a new strategic plan. The school district actually has done 2 in the last 6 because they got a little ways down and then they decided they'd do a bigger one. So
I think one of the ones we identified at Main Street that needs to be looked at is the idea of a downtown oasis. We found that that's just way too subjective because your idea of an oasis could be different than my idea, than Gina's or Alicia's. And that's in the plan. It specifically says oasis. I
Mhm.
think we need to maybe,
but that defined area is also the area between Heritage Park and the dam. And it doesn't say, it says community oasis, not downtown oasis.
well,
Downtown is downtown.
it's more the word oasis. I think that's a little bit
I
of
get it.
you know what I mean?
And
That's all.
it is, I mean, yeah, if you read through it, it does say where we're not going to develop that area, right? It's going to maintain natural. So yes, everybody's opinion of that is different. You want to make sure have like permeable concretes and things like that, which sometimes makes sense, sometimes don't. The Kansas City implemented that, and if you go over to where Dunkin' Donuts, Taco Bell is, those parking lots are completely falling apart already, and some of them have just paved them because it wasn't too hard to keep them maintained because it turned into gravel essentially.
Yeah, that was my
So,
only
yeah.
thing is if we're
Yeah,
coming up,
definitely.
that one word is seemed to throw us for a little bit of a loop. Like, what does that really mean? What does that mean for the space? So
Yeah.
just something to think about.
I think the other million words we'll look at too. Quit hanging up on one a little bit. But yeah, that's true. And that's the thing, make sure you're there to help define those things. Because that was one of the terms that was, Carol was there, Alicia was there, Kelly was there, Marv was there, I think Melissa was at most of them. That was a generally accepted term for the entire community at that time, which was 5 years ago. So almost 5. Cool. As far as the format that we have of our comp plan and our strategic plan, does it help provide you guys with a roadmap of a checklist? I mean, essentially, we had them do a time-based checklist and a priority checklist in the back. Are those being helpful to you guys when you're going through this?
I think one of the things the EDC talked about was if, some of those longer term priorities, do you want us to start working on those now rather than waiting and focus those as a higher priority? Or do you want us to try to go through that punch list of more of the low hanging fruit first?
I think Jack and P and Z's kind of done a decent approach of touching on those longer term ones every meeting a little bit.
Yeah.
And how do we chip away at those bigger
Right.
things?
'Cause a lot of those are repeat, you
Yeah.
have to keep working on it year to year, but
Yeah.
that was something that.
Don't
that
eat the
came up.
elephant all in one meal, right? You just gotta get through it. But yeah, any of those goals should be looked at, but really, what are the top 3 you're going to focus on? And I think with community art, the business retention visits, have you done one is it this month we're picking up 2? Yeah, so getting those taken care of, focus on education, I think continues to be a community standard. So ways we can make sure we get those other partners involved. I know the CDL school is still potential at some point. I know there's probably some stuff we could leverage with St. Luke's or Mosaic, or what is it now, Meritas, to see what kind of community engagement they're doing. I know the health department's been doing a lot more lately with community education. More than just the K through 12 pieces of it. Early childhood's a big thing.
I will say, once you mentioned St. Luke's, that Steve, Cynthia, Gina, and I did have a pretty good meeting with I can't remember if it was the CEO or what their exact titles were, but it was 2 higher ups from St. Luke's here in Smithville and kind of discussed their future thoughts on the ER space that's no longer being used. And I know an urgent care facility was something that Melissa was really interested in. So we did put the bugs in their ear. Obviously, they have to look and see if that's makes sense for them to have those. But we also talked about I think we gave them Carol's information for maybe working with the high school to get some type of lab tech classes or things like that in there. So and we definitely have planted that seed with them as well. So
Awesome.
that would be great.
Anything else? Any other input? We have former EDC board members here, so.
You guys are coming. I love that you guys have goals now. I mean,
Use your
you've
mic.
come a long way. I'm so proud of you guys.
I got a question about one of the goals there on the development from any kind of airport redevelopment. Have we seen anything?
And when we talk about airport redevelopment, we're talking about the $3 billion bond issue that Kansas City passed and
Right.
not a airport in Smithville. Just to make sure everybody's
no,
clear
no,
on
no,
that.
no.
There was kind of a very small project that just happened south of here
No, no, no.
that was very, very expensive and very, very controversial that we said, hey, we should make sure we try to reach out to businesses and vendors and things from that, right? I know one of the things I've helped work on is we've set geofences for certain apps so that if somebody comes off the plane and they visited a business in Smithville, they get a text message that says, hey, welcome back to Kansas City. You
Okay.
haven't been here for a while.
Yeah, and part of it, I think Alicia brought up at the last one is looking at ways we can do marketing at the airport as well. And kind of, I think with a lot of the marketing campaign that we'll start to work on, that'll help with that.
Well, Steve just got here, so he missed that he got volunteered to stand outside of the arrivals, spinning a sign that says, come to Smithville. So that's what happens when you're late.
Sign, Steve?
Yeah.
Can you sit there and spin it all day? Smithville, drive a shuttle. Thanks for joining us.
And then I had another comment or question on your art. Maybe I don't know exactly what your goal exactly there is as far as economics. Have we ever thought about just having our school kids providing the art on a rotating basis? I mean, yeah, some of the parents are here all the time, but grandmas and grandpas come to town.
Yeah.
Marv, you're
Yes.
speaking my language.
Go ahead.
That actually has been a big part of the conversation. There was discussion and it's still a discussion about whether we pay an artist, we bring the high schoolers in. I do know that I have an art teacher, the high school art teacher, who's just been trained on how to do a client project with students, is ready to go. So hopefully we can get the wheels in action soon, because that's something that we are ready to do
Do
this
you
year.
happen to know an artist who worked on a mural that's had a lot of pictures taken?
I do know an artist
Yeah.
that happened, and that was a high schooler
Yeah.
also that worked here. Yeah.
I'm
so,
sure she would contribute some opinions to help out.
She's in South Carolina now, so she's a little too
We
far
got
away.
Zoom,
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
FaceTime.
But no, we have a whole new crop of high schoolers that are ready and willing to do something.
Yeah, it's not, the thing with watching murals develop, especially on like the scale that's in this alley over here, like it's interesting to watch the different layers go down because at first it looks like just a bunch of splotches of paint and it's a big, like it's a big painting. It's hard to see it until it's done.
So we were thinking that, and then Missouri Co-op told us that like you need to pay artists. That's kind of like what they told us is they would prefer that we do like a call for artists.
Mhm.
So we're kind of just going off of what they're recommending because they're giving us the toolkit and we're working with Elena up there. And she even was like, you need to get your public feedback. So this weekend at Hot Summer Nights, I went out there with surveys. If you're interested in what the theme's going to be, it's lake life. So we're poll testing that right now on Hot Summer Nights. I'm going out there with paper surveys, 4 or 5 statements about the lake and public art. And then do you agree or disagree? So we had about 17 last weekend and they were all in agreement. So far, lake life is surveying well. It's not a controversial topic or anything like that. It seems to be the community is okay with a mural with a theme of lake life. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
So you're walking around with the clipboard, people aren't running from you like the other petitions?
No, everyone's
That's
been
good.
pretty friendly, at least, and I wait until I do it before the music. Once the music starts, then it's keep my mouth shut. They want to listen to the band. So, but I'll be doing that all August. Then I'll collate that data and send it to Elena and be like, public comment is done. We're ready to move forward. Now what's next? So we're going to be just plugging along throughout the year to get this done. Probably in the spring, hopefully, will be when it can start, and then we'll have to come to you for permission.
We don't want to do
the
it in
public space.
August, right? In July? 'cause
No, we'd like to do
You've
it
learned that
earlier
you
than
don't like the summers here.
unless they want to be out there at midnight.
Melting at midnight.
I'm going to follow up, because the students propose doing this through the school year, winter months, it's really
Yeah.
hard to do so what they're looking at is doing maybe some, something that can be installed either inside or outside, but, even partnering with local businesses, and coming up with a theme, obviously, and then doing pieces of it that can be installed then, so they can do the work at school and then install it.
Yep.
So there's room for
Yeah.
all of these options, so.
And also working with the, the industrial arts type of stuff with VBROX class 2 to help build the structures and things. You have a lot of capacity at the school.
Thank you.
I have a question. I think that, thank you all for being here, first of all. I think that Gina mentioned it earlier, but what we talked about flyers for, or something for Smith's Fork, right? To let them know what we have going on downtown, whatever things, activities they could do in the city. Have you thought about having also maybe a checklist on places they visited and things that they thought the city should bring or have that they would enjoy here, to kind of add that kind of on feedback coming back to us on what we maybe could adjust in the future?
I know you did the Olympic scavenger hunt and Shark Week, so I saw people
Oh.
running around for that one.
Yeah, I like that idea of some type of kind of feedback. So, or if I remember at one point, like checking in places was popular, but I don't know how popular that is anymore. But definitely any like kind of feedback, I think would be great. Yeah.
Agree.
I think Adam with a clipboard at the airport. Why are you going to Overland Park and not Smithville?
That'd be great.
Yeah. Yeah. Steve, you got anything? Mike's right next to you.
Have to have training here on the mic. I understand the Missouri extension on the funding. I'd really like to see our high school students involved.
Yeah.
If there's a way to incorporate both.
Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
both for sure.
I mean, we've done 1, 2, 3, I think 5, and it's been a mix. So we paid professional muralists and artists, and then we've had some that were student.
Yeah, we've definitely
projects.
touched on doing both at meetings that,
Yeah.
that we would like to include. We'll do a call for artists and anyone can weigh in on that. And if it ends up being an art group from the high school, then that's great. But we'll definitely, we're not ruling out any one thing or another when it comes to the mural.
Yeah.
Everything's open.
Awesome. Other than art, any other questions for EDC? I have a question for John, since he hasn't talked yet. You worked in the truck stop space, right? What's the land requirement for a truck stop typically?
For Love specifically,
Yeah.
8 to 12 acres.
Yeah.
For a pilot, they can get by with about 8. It depends on the number of truck parks that they want, the number of stalls, and that's all volume driven. If you're looking for a potential truck stop, I'm assuming south of town.
So not on a 2-lane highway with 5 acres, possibly. Not gonna happen, right?
Never say never.
I will say
Trying to
specifically that
debunk
that
a
would
rumor
be,
that-
that would be great because in the fall, when all of the farmers from St. Joe and Gower and all of that are driving through in their grain haulers, there is usually only one fuel station here in Smithville that is open, and some of those guys are running until midnight or whenever the elevator closes, and they need to be able to fuel up diesel.
Yeah,
Just a thought.
just need to get them to get more diesel in the other gas stations.
I think the thing that people don't realize is the amount of volume that some of these locations can do. Not unheard of for a single location to do 70 to $100 million a year in retail. So the tax base is, I opened the one in Harrisonville and we were the single largest tax contributor to the city.
Amazing.
I will put my feelers out.
I don't think we're quite there yet.
Thank
Or do
you.
we have available land that's zoned for it either, so.
Mayor, just one of
No
the other
Bucky's,
things.
yeah, either.
No, Bucky's, yeah. Yeah, that's I appreciate that. The STRs, because there are several
Yes.
companies involved in that. But one of the things that I think the EDC didn't realize, and maybe some of the board doesn't, I think we're up to 12 or better STRs in Smithville. And a lot of those individuals shop at Price Chopper, they shop, they come down to the coffee shop, they look for restaurants, they go to the lake. I mean, White Iron Ridge is a big, but it's because we don't have a large hotel that's kind of taken place. And so that data, if we can gather data, and there's Air DNA, and obviously we can talk to management companies that do that, but that's just something that I think is important because there's some economic vitality there. Those people stand.
Yeah, it's, and it's, folks visiting family too. I know there's some families here that have regular visitors that stay in the short-term rentals and the people working at the data centers at the airport, so.
And Gina, you recently had a meeting specifically about that. You might update the board, and I can't remember if you had that meeting before your last EDC meeting to be able to provide information or not.
No,
So I put you on the
I'll
spot
be-
here.
I'll be sharing it with everybody. I did have a meeting with one of the property management groups for short-term rentals. And they shared with me just kind of more information about why people are staying in Airbnbs. And surprisingly, a lot of it is for visiting family or going to a specific event or work. I was surprised to hear a lot of people aren't coming here to stay in like short-term rentals for the lake. But when I started thinking about it more, a lot of the people who are coming to Smithville Lake, they're either staying at the campground or they're just doing a trip. So a day trip. So after talking with them, we talked about doing kind of a business catalog. So I'm going to work with Erica for us to put something together to put in the short-term rentals of kind of like, hey, here's what to do in Smithville, and have a little booklet that just stays in the property. So then get more people to visit our amenities. So
You're loud enough, you could probably just talk, or steal Cynthia's. Yeah,
Is there any way to look at with those STRs to figure out demand, right? Is there any way to find
Yes.
out whether or not that they're like, oh, you know what? I'm actually like, we're booked up and we can't, we have so many people. And then that's what I think we would need to get a hotel, right? We need to show somebody that there's a demand. Is there any way that we can collect data from the owners about their, like
only
how
have it
they're
on
looking?
their booking.
yeah, hotels use a
sites.
lot of different metrics, because I've been working on this 6.5 years now. They use a lot of data points. And one of those data points is, we don't have a tax incentive for them that the airport does, right? You can go 3 miles that way and get an incentive to be able to put in the same hotel and get the same customers for the same rates. So why build here where there's not readily available land that's zoned for it, that's got the infrastructure for it? Hotels use a lot of water, they use a lot of sewer. And where are we gonna look at this? That's why we put together a sewer and water master plan. Pull out the map, show us where we have the capacity. It's probably not a spot where a hotel wants to be. It's gonna be, right next to the sewer plant, because that's where the big sewer line's at, and good water line. But we don't have land there for it.
What about
If
even
we try to go,
smaller, maybe smaller motels, maybe not a big convention center type
even 60
hotel.
rooms is not gonna, if you go south of 92, you're probably not gonna be able to handle it, right, Chuck?
So long-term, should EDC not really even be thinking about that then?
No.
We should be thinking more about STRs?
I think alternatives to it, the campground is something we have. How do we enhance the campground to get more glamping, and do we want to look at the glamping crowd, or do we want to look at the workforce crowd? Because that's who the kind of the split is right now on the RV thing as well. If you want to get higher rates, you put in yurts and do, cabins and things like that, that they've done a lot of core engineer land. And we'll have even more sewer capacity at the campground than we do south of 92.
So that's
Or
good.
north of what, 170 something? I mean, our core capacity for infrastructure is this downtown core, but show me 8 to 10 acres.
So that's good for us, right? So that we're not spinning our wheels anymore with that particular Because we were looking, we were like, let's try to get a hotel. But
Oh,
now
I-
it's like, it
we-
doesn't seem to be feasible, so we can adjust and start looking at the
Yeah.
campsites now.
Yeah, I mean,
Thank
there's other, and with, especially with STRs, you could look at like AirDNA and you could plug in your address and see what the potential rental rate would be for your house if you put it on they have enough data now, because it's been around long enough that they can say, oh, this house in this zip code at this square footage has this demand on it and likelihood of being booked out 91% of the time. Hotels are looking for a pretty high booking rate. Even the one in Gladstone was a pretty big risk, but they've exceeded their projections, but it's in a tax incentive district and the pool is smaller than most backyard pools. Cause it's more of a business traveler hotel than a family leisure hotel. And I think we'd be if we're gonna really attract recreation and baseball and other things that go along with the plan, then we need to look at a place where Carol's lived part of her life when those traveling baseball teams. The Yeah. ADUs, yeah, that's tiny home type of zoning, things like that you can, are, more aggressive at making it accessible. Yeah. Yeah. In places that we have capacity for sewer, water, electric, gas, the utilities that are necessary for it.
CDC meetings presented with a fairly large amount of land near the water tower south and west on the
You,
south.
you can turn that on so people online can hear you. So you're talking about the South Overlay District, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So Gina, I don't know if you want to go into that much, but the South Overlay District is a conceptual plan to say this is what we'd like to see in that area. That doesn't mean that that area is readily available it's not shovel ready by any means right now. I mean, it's what, 8 to 10 years out on the water master plan to get that fully serviced with loop and sewer and everything else, right, Chuck? Chuck's nodding his head for those who can't see. Yeah, water and sewer is not there, but we need the plan in place, which is going to take probably close to a year to develop even the plan to publish out there to say, this is what we want to see in the future. And as you know, working with, Loves and others, those things take time. So if somebody comes in and says, hey, we want to plug into it, we can start looking at the options then, because we're going to restart construction of 144th Street. Then we'll get sewer closer to it that then feeds into Gravity. But once you're south of McDonald's right now, they've been working on that for the last 20 years, trying to get capacity down there. Forest Oaks is plugged into Kansas City. Kansas City's pretty much said no more connections. They might have changed their mind since then. But that flows that way. And if you look at the creek, if you follow the creeks from Forest Oaks to pretty much 144th to get into where that interceptor is going to go, then we can pump it up the hills. We talk about sewer a lot, as Chuck and Gina and Cynthia know. I don't have a day we probably don't talk about it, but we pump it every which way. It doesn't flow downhill here. We have 30 pump stations. It goes north, south, east, west, up, down, over the hill, under the hill, everywhere it can go. So, and it's very expensive to pump it out of the hill. Yeah. And our operating cost on a pump is about 5,000 a pump, and some of those stations have two. And it's just the electricity alone and that kind of stuff is pricey.
One thing I want to touch on is the golf course.
Yeah.
STRs. They get a lot of calls out there when they bring in these college teams, the junior golfers, a lot of golfers that come in for a long weekend. Where can we stay? They'd love to stay closer. I don't know how we can tap into that with those. And then I was wondering too, there are other individuals that'll come down here for a long weekend and they'll drive down from Minnesota to spend 3 or 4 days golfing. About how do we maybe get information out there to the golf course on things that can be done when they're here locally, trying to keep them more local in Smithville instead of driving to Kearney to stay or Platte City or.
Well, not even just
things
that
else.
part, the shopping. I mean, can we try to
you
get
just-
them the QR code and stuff you guys got for the campground so they could
Yep.
try to get?
Yeah, I'm ordering more and we are gonna plan to do it 2 times a year, so it'll be a little refreshed with each of the seasons, so.
Yeah, and getting those into the actual units would be nice. But yeah, getting, I think if you get because now that they register with the Brandy, maybe she can get the golf course can get those lists of websites that people can book from. Because there are some pretty decent sized ones. I know there's one in Harbor Lakes
Mhm.
that's decent size. There's a few down here. They're not all like 1 or 2 bedroom.
Yeah, I'll plan to reach out to them.
Okay.
And get connected. Good idea.
Anything else? We're not even close to 3 hours yet. Like 55 minutes. 35 minutes? Yeah, 35 minutes. Go ahead.
Well, thank you. We appreciate you taking the time to meet with everyone and
Yeah. Anytime you guys want to do this, let's do it.
yeah.
If I could jump in just a little bit as well, I want to thank the EDC for your efforts, obviously, but also for your time to meet with the board this evening. Hopefully this provides you guys some additional information on some way forward in looking at prioritizing the work that you all are doing that is important and appreciated. So thank you for making the time this evening too.
And I encourage you, as you hear people in the community say things like, we need a hotel or we need a Chick-fil-A or tell them to apply. You guys all went through the process, right? I wasn't there. I didn't pick you. You were picked by your peers and the staff members that serve on the EDC. Apply. And that's the way to get involved and be a part of the voice of this and hopefully learn something. Not just post that we need Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A. Somebody brought it up again in one of those, I think it was our new superintendent. I said, well, the business class did a lot of research on Chick-fil-A a couple years ago. They probably still have it sitting around somewhere. All right, thank you all. You're welcome to stay for the rest of the fun-filled meetings. We're going to be talking about, surprise, surprise, water and wastewater. We're going to be talking about more sewer and water.
He's like, I'm out.
You don't like to hear about flow rates and pressure and you just want to know that when you flush the toilet, it goes away, right?
Right. Canal video.
Good way to look at that.
Dang. Do you feel, Rick, are you like, does that hurt when they want to watch a root canal over your presentation on sewer? I mean. Good thing Chuck and Gina didn't hear that. Chuck might cry. He said he'd rather get a root canal than talk about sewer for you, you know. Chuck loves it. We had lunch out there the other day. It was great. Yeah. It's fantastic. The building's clean.
Come on up, Chuck.
We need, hey, you can have the mic from the back of the room. It's fine. If you decide to rap too, we'll listen to your flow. Hey, by the way, Chuck, I almost texted you and Cynthia last night. I was at the Royals game. I've never heard such a loud boo in my life as when they said, by the way, Bill Self is here tonight, and showed him on the screen. There was a lot of K-State and KU and MU fans in the crowd last night. Bill, nobody deserves that, even though I don't like KU. In case you're watching our board meeting for some reason. You said roll tide. I mean, we did have a basketball coach retire, but you know, I think we got a replacement. We're good. He can stay over there and rock chalk it all up. It's all yours.
I don't know if I get over our systems for a few more minutes.
All right. Linda and I had a mouse click 101 session before this. So I passed with a D. It was, we're a little far away, so sometimes it might be a little tricky here. So tonight, I'm going to talk to you. My first presentation will be about the utility fund and proposed rate adjustments. Work. All right, as I was looking over this just 5 minutes ago, I was like, well, I can already see one thing on here. The review with the board is obviously being done in August. So, and then we will have the approval for rate adjustments in October. So this is a process going over a couple months, looking at different scenarios and coming up with what we believe is going to be the best case scenario for the city of Smithville. In developing the combined water and wastewater fund, we are looking at existing needs and what the board has directed staff to do. We continue to look at privatization. That is always in the back of our mind, but we are looking at the high priority needs that need to get done now. As we develop this fund, also remember this is an enterprise fund, which is basically a self-supported fund. It is supported by water and sewer rates that feed into those 4 little bullet points right there in the middle. We have things that we have to spend our money on are water and sewer projects, and that is from the master plans and paid by user rates. We also have water and sewer paid by debt. Those are typically our bigger projects. And then we have an increase in operational expenses. And then we also have equipment upgrades. And as our equipment is getting older, these funds, these balances increased moderately going forward. First up is the capital improvement plan for the combined water and wastewater fund. And looking at 25, a couple of the line items I want to point out will be the Maple Ave and River Crossing, which is 50% of the expenditure. The other 50% is in the water impact fees. Also on the 144th Street lift station, we do have federal earmark money of 1.5 million, which is huge. So the total projected as of right now for 25 will be a net of 5.1 million. Looking at 26, most of these projects that you're seeing on here are being rolled forward from the last year or two. In 26, we have projected about 3.3 million of expenditures on capital improvement plan projects. And then looking at the final 3 years of the 5-year plan, 2027 is a big year. We have planned 7.7 million. In the green there, you'll see the Owens Branch line, which is new this year, is new to the CIP. Also in red, we have the wastewater treatment plant expansion. There is an additional $3 million in fiscal 2030. So we do have some very large projects coming up. We are constantly analyzing our projects and prioritizing where the needs need to go. Looking at 2 cash flows for the fund, both of these cash flows are considering no rate increases. This first one, we do include the COP issuance, and that is approximately 4.3 million. If we did that in 25 with no rate increase, we are looking at fiscal 27 going under our target reserve. On the next one, we took out the COP issuance, and again, no rate increase. And we hit the reserve during the year 2026. One thing with the COP issuance, and we're looking at privatization, if we did the COP issuance and we're looking pretty heavily at the privatization, the COP issuance is not tax exempt. Right now, it would be tax exempt being the city. So that would be an additional cost with doing that. All right, back in 2022, there was a rate study done. And in that rate study, it has both our water and sewer rates increasing 15% through about 2029. Staff is proposing for next year, for 2025, to increase by that 15%. And the next couple slides we're gonna go over are kind of your more common charges. These are more residential type charges, which are significant in the user fees. So looking at this, 2024, our fixed monthly charge is $14.70. At a 15% increase, that will go to $16.91. We also have the senior rate, and that is 15% discounted off of the regular monthly rate. Also, increasing 15% would be the volume charges for water. Right now, those volume charges are $10.40 per 1,000 gallons used, and that would increase to $11.96 per 1,000 gallons used. On the wastewater fixed rates,
Better get some of that. Make sure you ship it here so we get the sales tax.
Rick,
I know.
pardon me, Rick, should those be 23 and 24 or 24 and 25?
That is 24 and 25. Good catch. I
And-
only
and-
put
and-
two more sets of eyes on
Well,
this time.
And then the previous slide as well has 23 and 24.
Okay, I'm
Thank
gonna
you.
put three sets of extra eyes on it for the next
Just
presentation.
send it to Melissa.
So, for the monthly wastewater fixed charge, currently that is at $21.19, and that is proposed to go to $24.37. Also with that is a senior discount rate. And once again, that is 24 and 25. This is the volume charge for wastewater, which is currently at $8.84 per 1,000 gallons, and that'll go to $10.17. We also have some non-resident customers. These rates will be included in the 15% increase. We have approximately 63 customers that are on sewer only. Currently, they pay $81.68, and that would go to $92.61. We also have approximately 19 customers on water only. Both of those rates would increase as well. And we do offer the senior discount for the non-resident water only, and we have one person on that. All right, now we're gonna.
Hey, Rick, if I could just jump in real quick, I just wanted to underscore your comment earlier that those numbers that he's talking about, those are based on the average user. So just remember that
Right.
those numbers we're saying is not what's set for everyone. I want to make sure everybody, particularly those watching at home, also understand this. I'm also going to
Well,
quickly, sorry.
Those are the fixed charges.
They
and
are,
they
I'm sorry, that's the
we're gonna
fixed
get there
amount. And then
soon.
I'm sorry, I jumped ahead.
No, we're gonna get there soon.
I jumped.
Those are the fixed charges, and then the fixed based on volume charges.
And that fixed charge does apply to everyone.
Correct.
And it's that, and I am sorry for
No, you're
misspeaking on
good.
that. I did jump ahead. And those are applied to every bill.
Right.
We've had some questions about that lately.
This may not be the place to get an answer, but I know you've talked about looking at potentially that privatization. So how do these CIP projects flow if that were to happen? Do we know? How that
They,
would work,
right
or-
now, we have them prioritized based on the needs that have to happen.
Wh-
We have to operate as if we're not
Right.
going to prioritize.
The
Right.
CIP as
Privatize.
presented here are the priority projects based on cash flow. We know that we have significant needs down the road. And I think that's one of the things that we've looked at. We have costly expansions that are necessary, expansions to the system to provide those services, but also ongoing maintenance costs. One of the reasons that we are reviewing privatization as a possibility is to help with that cash flow. One of the other reasons is we know, as Rick said, our utility rate study that was the first one that was initiated in 2018, and every year since when we've updated that, we've looked at double-digit increases. Those double-digit increases are anticipated to take care of and finance those enhancements to the system, but also that ongoing maintenance of our system. It is costly to maintain it. One other thing I want to also make sure, Rick mentioned this earlier, but I want to make sure we all understand our water and wastewater utility are funded solely through user charges. Now, one of the things that has helped us, we've got some grant funding come in, grant funding or federal funding that we've applied for. There are no tax dollars. Sales taxes and property taxes support exactly zero of the water and wastewater funds. I see a lot of stuff on social media. We take calls on a weekly basis. I paid my taxes. Your taxes do not support your water and sewer bill. And I want to make sure that I know you all know that. I just want to repeat it as often as possible.
Cynthia, just to your point as well, it's our job to be educated and educate the consumer. So I appreciate you reiterating that. It's also with businesses. Businesses pay a higher amount, and if they're a new business, they pay impact fees, which we'll talk about later, I'm sure. But impact fees are a way to pay for the use, right? I mean, that's essentially what it
Correct. And
is.
not only new businesses, when we have new service to this, large volume service to the system. So residential areas, we look at the impact to the system on the system, and those fees go in, and those are included as part of the calculus of you see in the CIP when we've not used impact fees a lot in recent years. We've saved those up because those need to be used for the expansion of the system based on the impact of those new systems. Chuck, fair?
All right, moving forward here, we're gonna look at two cash flows. The first one is a rate increase, and again, of 15%, and a COP issuance in 2025. As we can see here, we are definitely well above the target reserve, and our ending fund balance at each year is very positive and very strong, having both of those being done, the rate increase as well as the COP. As we think about privatization, we've done this scenario to just kind of let everybody understand the COP, the importance, but also the possibility of pushing out just another year or so until we can, one, have a better understanding on the privatization, and two, it would definitely save money year over year until we do the COP issuance. So if we do the rate increase and no COP issuance, it doesn't go below our target reserve until 2027. So that will give us a couple more years to do our analysis with the privatization, as well as things change. This is something we will constantly be looking at. If the economy fell out, we might have to do it late 25, 26. But this just gives us the opportunity to be able to push that issuance out.
Right, and as we've looked at this over the last 5 years, we've always had a dip that we've never actually hit because bills come in late, funds come
Projects are
in,
delayed.
projects are delayed, interest rates have been going up, so we've had more money go into the fund and we've spent less money.
Right,
So, yeah, this is a hypothetical, but we've never got close.
right.
If
to
I
our
could
reserve.
note, 2 years ago, 2024, we were seeing a dip. That's why we were looking at the COP issuance for the 144th Street project. We had anticipated specifically this issuance for for the 144th Street project. That project has changed in scope. That project also is, as Rick has noted, and as we've discussed before, has that federal earmark
Yeah.
funding that helps us with cash flow. We are not saying we would not issue COPs in the future. We're saying this saves us the debt costs of issuance of COP right now. We have the cash flow available. We know it's a fund that we need to watch because we've been watching it for the last several years. We know we need to complete the projects, but we're also doing that analysis.
Well, the original plan too was we're gonna do the raw water pump and the sewer improvements at Smith's Fork separately. We decided to move forward with those combined and do COP at that time that we then didn't have to do 3 years, 4 years later because we got federal funding for that one as and county funding as well. So we never know how the grants are gonna come in that Chuck and everyone works so hard on. You know, this is great to see in the out years, but the reality of the situation over the last 10 years has been we've not gotten to a reserve negative ever. So
And I don't want to belittle the fact that this also is based on the assumption that there are significant rate increases.
Yeah.
We recognize that as staff. We also know we've reviewed that, I feel like a broken record. We've said this over and over, but to maintain the system, that's what's required. Do we like it? No. Is it necessary? Yes.
yeah, I mean, the system hasn't grown substantially in the last 5 years, but the salary cost, the material cost, the chemical, everything else has grown significantly. I mean, we probably paying 3, 4 times as much now just for a fire hydrant than what we were paying 10 years ago.
And that's just in the operating expenses. That's not even talking about capital projects.
Right,
or
that's
anything
not
like that.
digging-
That's just strictly operating.
That's not digging a hole
Right.
30 feet down and dewatering it.
Well, and it's not just the cost of construction related to those, it's the cost of the engineering and design, which continues to go up as well.
Because everybody's doing
Because the
projects,
costs
because
are- and
everybody got
everybody's-
funding.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, we learned a lot about dewatering 6 years ago, right? Building the it's north and south interceptor, so it wasn't cheap. Pump water out of a hole all day.
All right, next slide. We're looking at the Smithville water average usage of water and wastewater bills from 2017. So looking at 2024, the average usage assumption is 4,128 gallons. That did decrease a little bit over last year. So at this point, with the fixed charges and the volume charges for water and wastewater, the average bill is roughly $128.
I think also when we did the rate study, it was quite a bit higher, and the direction the board gave at that time was focus on usage charges because we wanted to encourage conservation of water to not have to expand the system, right? So it looks like that's actually working, right? Our average usage is down year over year. Dan's not watering his yard as much. Melissa's went up. She's watering her yard.
I'd make a valid point too. This has been a wet year.
It has been a rainy year. Last year was pretty dry.
Building on that last chart of just water and wastewater fixed and volume charges, now we're adding the trash, which is automatically included in our customers' bills. So that the average usage bill with trash now goes to $149.
I think that's an average sewer bill in Kansas City if you live in an apartment.
Yeah.
Did you ever see one, Gina?
Moving on and doing a comparison to cities surrounding Smithville, we are about 2/3 up this ladder here and this is based on 5,000 gallons just because we needed to do a strict number for each city. we don't know when we look up their rates if they prorate their volume charges or not. So this is what the rates are currently. And Smithville is at $132, and again, about 2/3 up this.
And probably less than half of them own their system, right?
There's
Both sides.
there's a decent chunk
Yeah.
that don't. So. And we don't know, when looking at this, all these other cities are probably in discussions of raising their rates as well.
Yep.
So we'll all move in unison when we do this.
Kansas City, they just passed, and they have a ballot issue 6 months, April maybe, bond. I think they just had a bond in April to pass, that their sewer is gonna go up because they're a couple $100 million bond.
Hey, Rick or Chuck, why are we the highest usage in wastewater?
Wait,
Oh,
This is all based on the same amount of usage. Ours,
is all
our
based on
rate is.
5,000
It's based on 5,000 gallons.
okay, then why are we, I can't see the bottom there. Why are we highest in, the bottom's wastewater, right? Why are we the highest there of all the other?
the bottom is water
I see.
and the top is wastewater. the
I say
sewer.
we're pretty
Okay.
low compared,
So-
Kansas City is pretty high in sewer. That's the gray bar is sewer.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, Kansas City is like 2/3 your bill is sewer. And I think it's gone, this is probably last year data, because they haven't,
well,
yeah,
it's
they
just
probably haven't implemented
What's
it.
listed
Yeah.
currently.
Yeah, and yeah, you look at Liberty, look
Okay.
how big their sewer chunk of it is.
Our sewer's lower, okay.
Yeah, and I think
That's-
our average, yeah, it's 5,000 gallon usage. And some of those are harder to calculate because they're using,
They use
Cubic
cubic
feet.
feet.
yeah, instead of gallons.
There's a handful that use cubic feet as well. So, and we did read on a few of these cities, just like the city of Smithville, they are in rate discussions
Yeah.
as well.
So are all these cities, how many of those have their own setup like we do?
Pro-
Do
less
they
than prob-
provide all of it, or is it just one or two in there that
I know
have
probably
our
a third.
in-house, like what I call us
I would
in-house?
say a
Probably-
third to 50%
Yeah,
of
say-
them are.
Kansas City does. Liberty
Mini
just
gas.
brought on sewer again. Kearney, I know, was split Kansas City and them for their water, but they might have moved mostly back to themselves for water.
Riverside and Parkville are both private, fully
Private.
on both sides.
Yeah, and then North Kansas City, they
Those
have,
both.
are they using Kansas City?
North Kansas City, I think, is using Kansas City.
Yeah.
And then, but I'm not sure if that's their water.
Platte City, I don't know that they have their own utility. Yeah, Kansas City owns their, yeah, they'd had to spend a lot of money on sewer recently. So I think that number is going up. I can't remember what the ballot number was, but it was decent. But Liberty just recently, like in the last 2 years, built their sewer plant, right? Their new one. I think they just did a big upgrade not too long ago. Yeah, so yeah, to take themselves off Kansas, 5 years ago is when they took themselves off completely. So yeah, theirs is, that's why their chunk's pretty, yeah, their chunk's pretty big. I think Gladstone is, I don't think they have their own, I think they're tied in. I don't remember. Yeah, their percentage of bill is pretty high on sewer. Ours is kind of
Kind of nice
50/50.
to know, since we're looking at that
Yeah.
down the road, so we do that comparison of keeping it in-house versus it going out, of those, comparing those rates.
Well,
I've
like
marked
on-
down providing that information as we review.
And we still have, what, 200 and some accounts that are on Kansas City sewer that we pay Kansas City for, that we
Right.
collect less than we pay, because we have to pay the Kansas City rate, but they pay our city rate,
You are
right?
correct.
So we subsidize those houses as well with the rest of the system. It's fun.
Right, this last slide, we're just talking about the 2025 budget process. Melissa, before you say it,
We're ahead.
the first two is 2025. We will start going over the budget in total at our next session, as well as the 5-year CIP. 5-year CIP that we went over today was just for the combined water and wastewater fund.
20 is
So-
the first day of school too, so good day to talk about it, right?
Sweet.
First day of
The Then September 3rd, we'll have another one if needed. And then we will have a public hearing for rates. And then a first reading on the new budget.
Cool.
The interesting thing about water and sewer is whether you rent or you own, you use it, you pay for it, you know, but it's some people, the households are smaller. Now that we have a smaller household and not a household of boys who, don't know if the argument would be if they take as many showers as girls, but anyway, it was, we've noticed that, although the rates have gone up over the years, the bottom line is that we pay for what we use in our household. And so does
we-
everybody
We
else.
take it out of the lake and put it back into a creek cleaner than it was, right?
Hey, Rick, I have a question for
Sure.
you. Of course, the mayor mentioned that, inflation has been high last couple of years and going up right now. And I know that when we talk about rate hikes, it's a sore subject. And I know that you guys field a lot of the calls, so you, Gina, and the staff, I know are really aware of people calling in, and I'm sure all the other aldermen as well. One of the notes said capital projects are the primary driver of the proposed rate adjustment. I think there's several items in the capital projects that we could look at adjusting, but one of the things that I don't know if we is looked at, I would suggest that we look at it, is a scale back to 3 million a year on spending. And if we maybe flatline that out a little bit, I know already you're talking about maybe with the COP moving out, but that should, if you look at the chart, just looking at it just quickly, if we're able to curtail the projects to $3 million apiece, this first year priority would be, of course, the matching funding. But if we're able to curtail that out and forego the, I don't know if we've looked at making it 3 million a year that we're spending right around there, and then not doing the 15% increase or the COP, what time that buys us or how that flow would look. Just a quick overhead of it. It looks like it would get, all the way at least up to like 2028. I'm not sure if we looked
Right.
at that or not.
So
Alderman-
you're thinking of our capital improvement projects being capped around 3 million.
3 million a year.
25, 26,
Yeah.
27, 28.
Just push, I mean, see what, I know that they change in priority, and I know that there's a lot, I mean, everybody, like I know that Chuck will say they're all high priority, but I mean, if we need to look at that, really at what we could do to push that rate hike up or push it off back a ways, as well as with the COP. The COP, I think we already looked at that pretty good. We'd probably be able to manage that later on, depending on what privatization does to it. But if there's any chance of us moving or adjusting it to save the rate hike.
Can I say something to that?
Yeah.
Part of the reason we're having to do the increases we've been doing now is because of exactly what you're suggesting to do, is to push things out further. That is what has been done for the last 20 years that I have lived here. And that's why we're in the situation we're in now. So I don't know that it would be a good thing to try to push out further.
And I thank you, Alderman Wilson. And I'll tell you what, since I've been here, that's what I've heard, especially when talking with Chuck. The city seemed like that they pushed everything out and didn't fix anything. And that got us where we're at. And I think that's what we need to look at if we're looking at a possibility of reduction is what do we need to do and fix it right. We're going in and fixing things right instead of using a Band-Aid. And what capital projects we need, or we building for, or what if, right? I think look at those things. I'm not saying that that's what we have to do, or what we'll be able to do. I'm just saying if we could look at it from, a really, and I agree from what I've heard that, and what I've seen, I mean, you see in other pieces, this place has been ran way past maintenance. So we're trying to cover it now. I'm just saying it's a very bad time, and I get a lot of calls, and I know you guys do too, about it. Opportunity to do something to help right now and not put us, back in the 20 years ago would be helpful. Just something for thought. Thank you.
I can tell you that we are constantly looking at this. I can tell you probably Chuck had a change to it before I even presented tonight. I mean, it is a fluid project listing that we are always looking at. If we can do that, we are definitely gonna look at it. But right now, these priorities are immediate. And so as of right now, this is like that 5.5 for 25 is where we stand.
Yeah, we can pave half a subdivision. We can't build half a bar screen. The bar screen comes in at $5 million. We gotta spend $5 million. We
Well,
can't spend 3 and 2.
Mayor, if I may also, we have moved projects. We continue to review those. When the master plans came out, the expansion, the wastewater treatment plant expansion really was to start in 25, 26. And we continue to push those out based on our needs. We want to be realistic. We need to continue to serve the needs of the community. But, part of the CIP, our CIP is not just about the growth. The CIP projects are also about maintenance of the system. We've spent a significant amount this year on enhancements to the water treatment plant just so we can keep it functional.
Well, I
The
will,
older those plants get, the more expensive it is to maintain and more parts go down. So that also has an impact. It's managing the system as a whole. We can't push everything back.
I will correct you on one thing though. It is absolutely about the growth, but it was the growth from the end of the 80s until the beginning of the 2010s that caused the problems that we have when they built 33 pump stations for a couple hundred houses to pump sewage 5 miles for 200 houses is ridiculous. Yeah, go for it. Getting us on gravity.
phone. The 4 big projects, the 144th Street Pump Station is needed. We're reaching capacity at Hills of Shannon, the daycare lift station. So that's going to take care of that, as well as provide capacity for anything to the south. Forest Oaks, when I first got here, that project was supposed to be moving. It can't move until 144th Street Pump Station gets in. The Smith Fork Force Main, we put in that nice new pump station, and we've got a 4-inch line, and we got this much sewage coming out of it. So we've got to get that replaced before it plugs up, and we have no sewage coming out of it. The river crossing, there's one feed to the north end of town. We need to get another line across that river so we can get water and make sure we've got a safe, continuous volume going north. And then what's the other one? Stonebridge lift station. That one too, that's the daycare lift station that we're taking out with that. But the school districts, depending on that, and there's several things that we need. So those are the 4 big ones next year that are really pushing those expenses up. And they were supposed to be started this year. They've kind of got pushed, so.
And again, Stonebridge has been built out for a long time.
Right.
It could have had alternatives coming down to Wilkerson Creek instead of going up a hill and over a hill and
Right.
down a hill, right?
But the ones
We're
that
paying
Cynthia
for
talked
sins
about,
of the
the
past.
wastewater plant and the water plant, those we've moved based on, the growth of the community. They're gonna be more population driven than anything else. The wastewater plant's in good shape. The water plant, we're making the improvements we need to this year, but we'll watch population growth to see when those plant expansions are needed.
Right, but and I remember, I mean, I've been on this board 6.5 years now. And same with some of you others, Marv. And Adam Neighbor came to me beginning of my term, who had been on the board for, I believe, 6 years before me. And 144th and Forest Oaks was priority when he took office 12 years ago. And it's still something we're trying to get done.
Mayor, one of the things that we really battle with too in this inflationary period we've been in for the last 4 years, 3 years, 4 years is the cost of materials
Well, and the availability of construction.
and
everything
availability,
else, yeah.
construction and the engineering and everything else. So I absolutely see where you're coming from, Alderman Russell. I mean, trust me, we'd all like to sit here and go, let's delay, but we're also 3 or 4 or 5 years from now, the costs could be 1.5, 2.5, 3.5 times more. And there's just no way to beat it. There's just no way to beat inflation.
The only good news I have, and this doesn't have anything to do with utilities, but we did get bids on our commercial street project. They came in 900,000, was the low bid. We had a $1.5 million budget, and that's where the other bids came in. So for whatever reason, maybe some of these construction prices are gonna start stabilizing.
But underground's always specialized and it's gonna be expensive. When you're dealing with sewer, it's always gonna be expensive. And flushable wipes are not flushable. It says so on the bottle now. Did it? Sweet. Yeah.
And
Make
and I
lots of
do-
TikToks about it so people know what's going on.
And I do, Alderman Russell, I hope that, as we present this information, as I said earlier, staff doesn't want to bring 15% annual increases to the board. We look really hard at trying to bring, we recognize, you've mentioned our staff in the front lines, Rick's staff will be the first to say, can we not increase the rates? One, we don't want the residents to have to bear that. And two, we know we get calls about it. But in looking at it, this is from staff's perspective, the most responsible way to move forward. So we aren't digging a deeper hole.
Yeah, well, and like, if you look at the list, McDonald's shutting down because sewer's backing up in the building. That costs us tax revenue, that costs us job, people getting their paychecks and things like that. So it has a negative impact all around too when that stuff happens, so. They've had backups before that we've had to fix. Other businesses have had to, that, yeah. We don't
No,
want
Rick,
that, we don't want that either.
We're fortunate to have you as our director of finance, and I think we just need to keep crunching numbers like you're doing, and as a board, we got to make those hard decisions. Not easy.
Good news though, Chuck, thanks. 900 grand. Cause we got, how much in the grant funding? 400?
Well, and that's what I was going to say. I do want to acknowledge Chuck and the rest of staff's work. Chuck and Myra worked really hard in working with Congressman Graves' office in securing the funding that we've looked at here. And anytime there are opportunities for that, we see it through the transportation funds and other areas, but it's key to our utility fund. If we could secure additional funds, we can push that time off of issuing the COP for the cash flow. And it would be great if we could get to a point where it'd be enough to be able to help reduce rates as well, but when those can work hand in hand as well. And so everything they do is instrumental in providing those funds.
And we haven't gotten those change orders yet either, Chuck.
Schedule of fees, how are we doing? Got like 12 minutes.
Schedule fees. This presentation is going to look at the high level changes. Anytime we made a change or suggesting a change, anytime we've removed it. And this year, it seems like we've had a few that were being charged, but we're not on the schedule of fees. So we want to make sure we're as transparent as possible and get them on the schedule of fees. As we go here, kind of the same review process. We are reviewing in August on this one with the board. And then in October, we will approve the schedule of fees based on your guys' feedback. The first change, and this is definitely going hand in hand with what's been posted online and given to you guys, the complete schedule of fees. So the first one that is changing is the occupational licenses. In 2024 and prior, we had a step fee process where it started out at $50 and went to $100 based on the gross revenue of the business. After Jack has done some number crunching, we've realized that we can charge a flat fee at this point. There is no real additional work based on the gross revenue. We are proposing $75 for a flat fee going forward. And I'm gonna put Jack on the spotlight here. We also have some verbiage that we are gonna have to change in our ordinance to get this correct.
Thank you. Is it on? Yes, okay. When we were doing the research on the ordinance to make sure how we had to make the changes to the ordinance to get what Rick just mentioned taken care of, discovered a couple of other issues that we want to get direction on. First, the 610-020 is the licenses required provision in our code. And it lays out, you have to pay the fees that are described in the ordinance thing that has to be changed. And it also lays out the schedule of late, if you're late, when those fees occur. The next one is the term of license and prorating of those fees. So if you're half year, you only pay half, that thing, I think you're all aware of that. What we discovered is that inside that ordinance is a language that was added at some time in the 2000s, we suspect, that language was added that says any person shall apply for a new license, and what was added was, or a renewal of an existing license. That language, that little addition, effectively means that every bit of the previous section on late fees kind of goes away, and it encourages people to just not renew their license until after 90 days. Then not only do they not pay late fees, they can pay less, which then triggers us to have to go out and do enforcement, which could potentially mean shutting down businesses. In order to correct this scenario and to restore the late fees provisions that were in the initial ordinance of this years and years ago, would be to delete that language about or renewal, and just, if you're getting a new license,
You pay prorated.
yeah, it's prorated. If you're getting a new license, it just stays the same. Or there are other options. We could just delete the late fees provision and keep it this way.
Do you think it was possibly added for businesses that were seasonal, that were not open or operating when the renewal came out? I mean, or something similar to that,
Well,
or they took
it-
years off or whatever,
I've kicked, it wasn't in any of the minutes I could find, the true discussion on it. If that was the case, I thought of it, that's really throwing the baby out with the
Yeah.
bathwater.
Yeah.
Because the number of limited businesses that do that are limited. But the number of businesses that it impacts.
Yeah, is all of them.
It's all of them.
Yeah.
Except for the new ones that come in. So it didn't, I just couldn't fathom a really good reason for doing it.
And if I could jump in
yeah.
quickly as here as well. Jack talked about enforcement. So one of the reasons staff would really like to be able to clean up this language is we're really not enforcing it at this
Yeah.
point in time, because it's hard to enforce. And so the recommendation that we're bringing forward is based on what is kind of more grounded in reality of what the situation is and our ability, because there are other things we need to be
And
enforcing.
I don't know that it's ordinance language that needs to be clarified, or if it's just application language on the actual business license application. But I know the state statute changed on some of the home-based business stuff recently on not requiring, and also businesses that don't operate a business as somebody walks in, if it's a holding company or some other thing that just is registered at an address.
Right, right. And we have a list of the approved businesses, of the
Right.
businesses that.
I just
do
think
it.
there's some confusion out there from some folks that believe that if you have if you have 20 LLCs, because you have, 20 rental properties that are around the country, you should also have 20 business licenses, and that's not the case.
No, and the holding company, whoever that is, and you can have one business being issued the license, but they could have 20 DBAs underneath it.
Right.
It's all the same. As long as they're doing the same business. So, but the options would be to either delete the renewal language, to delete the other provision related to late fees, or some kind of a hybrid of all of that you all come up with. Obviously, the easy scenario is to eliminate the outlier, which is the renewal. It just doesn't make sense that it would be there. It basically abrogates the entire provision before it, which doesn't make sense. So, and as the mayor just mentioned, one of the reasons this is important to get on your schedule is we've got the content manager stuff coming together. And when that all comes together, it's going to require, any changes will require us to update all of our applications. And those applications going through the content manager, we kind of need to know where we're going to sit on that so that we can get it into the forms to make them easier to understand, and to be able to put them into the content manager system.
And to clarify, the content
And
manager
online.
system is an upgrade part of our financial system, which we have not had in the past. We will also have, as the mayor said, online applications, which we've not had in the past, online renewal. And so staff in the finance department, as we bring on the content manager piece of our financial records system, will have that ability to make those upgrades, and they're working on that for implementation with business licensing this year.
Right. I know that's one of the things we struggle with is our mail system, getting people mail delivered to them. The political candidates have no problem. I got like 50 mailers this week, but so many. But yeah, but the renewals, water bills, things like that sometimes tend to get lost, and it'd be nice to have them fully digital. So
Mayor,
Very
I'd like
nice.
to say, it sounds like the cleanest thing would be to just remove the one section you're talking about.
Yeah. just
Would be
redline
the-
it.
Would be the cleanest.
I concur with Alderman Wilson. I think that is the easiest.
Seeing head nods, Jack. I think staff recommendations is what we go with. Just clean it up.
One last thing that I haven't even discussed with Cynthia is, and that is in the other change that looks like you guys are leaning towards, and that's 75 to level it. Those are all contained in the ordinance itself. And I would suggest we clean that up by saying
Per the
fees
schedule of fees.
per the schedule of fees as approved by the Board of Aldermen.
Yeah, I think we've done that on a few other things too, so.
We've been doing that. This is just another one that we
Yeah.
caught. We
Sounds
got
good.
one coming into the planning commission next week as well, so.
Hopefully it's not another street name. Do that cycle again. All right, thanks, Jack. Next.
All right, moving on, police department. We are adding another fee for sergeant hourly services. Chief has decided that when there is officer needs of 5 or more, that a sergeant would be able to provide a benefit to the organization as far as keeping those officers on task, being able to prioritize issues, and having just another step of management there on premise. Right now, the only event is festival. That would be the only one that would be required to do this extra fee.
Yep.
I don't know if, Jason, you have anything more to add, or?
Chief, I thought we had a 6-pack discount with that.
No. This just covers these larger events where more officers are needed and we really need on-site supervision. And right now, Festival is the main and the largest one. This is just kind of looking forward, and I can foresee really in the next probably 2, 3, 4 years, I could easily see 2 or 3 of these events a year that may grow to this size where we're going to need actually 5 or more officers on scene and setting up, having somebody on site to actually manage everything all at once. And this is just kind of managing the one we've got now and kind of preparing for on down the road 2, 3, 4 years to come.
Hot summer nights, 2026. 10,000 people.
Cross fingers, hope so. So if there's any questions, I'll be happy to
Yeah, 17.
field them. But, and this works just kind of hand in hand what we've been doing with Festival for a while. In fact, they, for about 3 or 4 years ago, they made a request of having not only, but actually I think we have 6 people there. They made a request of not only having 5 officers, but they requested having a sergeant there starting about 3 years ago. So.
So I have a question.
Mhm.
Is the $80 an hour?
Yes.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the
Is
hourly.
that the norm in the region?
Um,
I'm just curious.
That's really just building off what we do with our officers and then just kind of extrapolating it, kind of in conjunction with our sergeants.
And Hancock allows us to charge our costs, not what's comparable.
Yeah. So,
Yep, we pay our costs.
yeah, so it's really kind of what's appropriate for Smithville.
Cool. Next. Thank you, Chief.
I'm thinking we're gonna need these tables for the staff to set up.
I know, it's
to
kinda
cover the
great.
Piece here, this is good.
Next up is the development department. Those first four are charges and or fees that have been charged historically. They were just not in the schedule of fees. Um, for the rezoning, site plan, and conditional use permit. Those are all standard fees that will be added to the schedule of fees going
So
forward.
Jack, on your two changes there, is it just, it's just more staff time that we're having to do right on some of these things and making it easier on the subdivisions to just be a flat?
Yes, and in part, one thing on here, I didn't, we're proposing the fee change for next year to 250 for the rezoning. Currently, there are two different rates and the work is the same and it's not what we're charging. For residential, it's currently 125 and we are spending about 257 in man hours. So we proposed a $250 fee and it's the same whether it's residential or all others. So our recommendation is there. As it relates to the site plan review application, again, we charge currently $75 and we spend every bit of $250 worth of time on.
So what are you charging right now? So is that incorrect where it says 2024, 250, 250, 250? Is that you?
I
That's
believe so,
incorrect.
yeah. I think it should be 125, 175, 75, and then the conditional use permit is, that's real, it's set up differently, completely differently. It's set up where they have to put down a deposit and then pay for the individual projections. We have work whether they go forward or not, so that was our calculation based upon the number of hours we would have to spend to do them. And then the multi-phase subdivision stuff below it, as it relates to that, minor plats, it's a fairly simple review. That's why, but it's more than $25 worth of time to do it. And then on the other subdivisions, the prices are going up based solely on the amount of time we spend, and it's on an average one. Some of them are going to be more than $500 worth of time. Some of them are going to be less, but that's the best average we could come up with based upon the last 6 or 7 that went through.
So I have a question. If all rezoning is 250, is it necessary to keep it broken out like that? Or can you just group it all together and just say rezoning 250?
I think the primary reason it's there is because it was different.
Different,
I
okay.
didn't catch the 250 it should have been 125, 175. I didn't catch it. That would have explained why it's different, but I just didn't catch it.
So going forwards, it would just say rezoning
Yeah.
250.
Yep.
Okay.
That's good. Up next, the wide world of schedule of fees.
Parks and Recs, they are adding a little hoopster league that is proposed at $55 per child. On the adult side, we are removing the gravel grinder bike race, adding pickleball and adult non-sport programming, and both of those will be the fees set on an annual basis. In the adult non-sport programming, that's gonna be items such as yoga, painting. Found out we have an adult Easter egg hunt. That will
We
fall
do.
underneath that one.
You should visit.
So much fun.
So
Is
that is
the
proposed
the
by
gravel,
Parks
the
and Recs.
bike race, is that going away?
From the city, yes.
Yes.
But it's still going to be held every year, right?
BD.
Okay, okay.
It's not, the staff we had that was working on that quite a bit is not here any longer, and it's just, yeah, something Matt's removed.
Right,
Trail
going forward
fees.
with Parks and Recreation Department, some verbiage changes. We are waiving for the Smithville School District as well as Smithville Main Street District for the parade fee. The damage deposit does not get waived. And then also a little change in the facility rental discounts to employees. It's just basically going to be a flat facilities and programs. Our customers come first before any employee. Just want to make sure that everybody understands that.
And we had discussed that last year. Somehow it didn't make it into the schedule of fees, so we just
Yeah.
wanted to highlight that.
Finance Department, we had one that was not on the schedule of fees. This isn't really a change, just an addition. And when you do pay online, you do have an additional convenience fee of $1.25.
I know.
What was
I'm well aware.
that? Well,
ACH, right, Melissa? ACH.
And we can provide those forms to anyone who would like to.
There's also a QR code for it.
Automatically, exactly.
We'll deliver it to your business if you'd like.
That and wipes, I'll talk about all day, every day.
Yep. Flushable wipes aren't flushable.
all right, looking at the utilities, impact fees, connection fees. We have the Stonebridge connection fee. We are proposing $3,900 for that, gallons per minute. And that would be no additional impact fees.
So what, can you walk me through that, or maybe Chuck can, what,
Yep.
I'm just not understanding that. What is, so,
That is why Chuck is right beside me on that one. Stonebridge connection fee.
Mike, you can just sit by Rick. He's got a chair and a microphone.
With the Stonebridge lift station project that we're doing, the existing customers in that drainage basin are gonna have sewer service when we hook it back up. The undeveloped lots are going to pay their share based on the gallons per minute of how they develop. So if it's a restaurant, they will pay a little bit more than if it was a house. I don't think there's houses in this area. But what we did was we figured out how much it was costing to build that lift station, $3,900, how much per gallon per minute, and then we just figured out what everybody's using capacity wise, and that's why the school district is also participating in that, because they're hooking into it. So when we get that on, we've got an MOU with the school district that they'll pay us $100,000 for their connection to that lift station.
Yeah, there's like a 0.8.
So it's basically development
Yeah.
driven. I mean, the lots that aren't developed right now are gonna pay their fair share, and just not be able to say, oh, the sewer's right here, so we can connect.
okay. It's just a one-time charge, just
Yeah.
one time.
And there's still water, impact fees, but this is the sewer impact fee.
Okay. Thank you, Chuck. Thank you, Rick.
And we brought this to the board last year when we were doing this, and we do have a resolution on this. It just wasn't included in the schedule of fees at that time. So we wanted to make it clear.
And the final one on that page is adding sump pump to be a little more descriptive on that stormwater service charge. It'll remain at $20. Sometimes, and our customers don't know this necessarily if they're buying an existing house, that sump pump, if it pumps directly into the sewer line, we do charge another $20 per month. If it is pumped outside into the yard, we do not charge it. They have to have an inspection to get that waived. So we just wanted to be a little more descriptive on what that fee really was.
Yeah, can we look at Chuck during fall ball, possibly coming up with some sort of fee structure to help remove those from the system? I know Carney and some others have been doing that to get those extra pumps off their sewer systems.
My understanding is there was a big move in the utility world, with the NPDES permits coming around that, when that started, because I did this in Emporia and Lawrence, to provide a program to do that. And my understanding was Smithville did that. And they went around to everybody who would let them and verified whether some pumps were connected or not. So there's not a lot left, but
Yeah,
there's
a hand-
several
yeah.
left.
Yeah.
So we just, that's why we thought we'd put it on there as sump pump, so people actually maybe they were reading the bill, they say, oh, what's that?
Yeah, and they can call you to say, how do I get rid of it?
Out, yeah. But I think Smithville had a program to where they did do assistance on some of this, on that.
Yeah, because it's $240 a year they could get off their bill if they just would disconnect it,
We
right?
had one lady come in, she was paying it and she didn't have it, and yeah, Rick made the adjustment, so.
Okay.
And it may have been at one point that it did go in the sewer line and they've reworked their pipes.
Yeah, the inspection found it or
Yep.
something. They fixed it during the sale of the house or something.
Yeah,
Yep.
when you're buying, when people are buying not new houses, but buying a new house in the older part of town, they should check that. So we'll get some information out on that, and
Okay.
this is one thing we're gonna touch on when we do that Citizens Academy too, just get that awareness out there. People need to look at these things, so.
Yeah.
Could we,
Cause we're treating rainwater at that point.
right, could we maybe send a letter, be a little bit more proactive and just saying, hey, did you know?
They get an inspection thing every year, right? Everybody that has a sump pump gets your inspection backflow,
That's backflow.
backflow preventer.
That's on irrigation.
Go on sprinklers. But could we do it at the same time as that? I mean,
Put some- we highlight something on the bill?
can try to.
We can do
Like a
that. We
little
can
note.
add something.
Right, just some
Yep.
way to make, because the
Sounds like a
example,
great
this
did you
lady
know,
didn't even know
Linda.
she was paying it or, right? I mean,
She bought the house?
She was a renter and came in with a
Oh, but
question
she's paying the
on,
bill, yeah.
yeah. She had some questions on her bill and we found out that she was paying for it and should not have.
And Alderman Hartman, as you said, maybe if we said, did you know to someone, we do have something that goes out on Thursdays, and I'm gonna have Linda work on a did you know on
Did you
that.
know? Drops on Thursday. Did you know? Did you know it drops on Thursday? Subscribe, like and subscribe.
All right, moving on. Next three slides we have already covered in the utility rate discussion. Just real quick, I'll just pause on each one of these. If there's any questions, you can definitely ask. These numbers are the exact same of what you saw, because these are the most popular, obviously most used fees in the water and wastewater. And this, again, is a 15% increase proposed for 25. Sanitation. Our proposed fee for sanitation for 25 is $21.07. And this is the regular residential rates. That is an increase from $20.16. We are getting our senior discount correct this year and doing a 15% discount based on that regular rate of $21.07. GFL, their rate increase was roughly 3.8%, which was just shy under, they have to be under or at the CPI for trash and garbage rates. They were just shy of that number for CPI. And our rate increase is roughly 4.5%. And again, this covers the mark, hazardous waste. It covers bulky pickup. There's some other things that we add.
E-waste.
And us being customer service as well. So, that is our rate proposed for trash at 21.07.
And Rick, I'd like to point out, as I did earlier in the work session, taxes do not support your sanitation rates either.
Yeah. And
This is
also,
the cost and so there are three components to the expenditures here. One is that contract we have with GFL. One is as Rick said, the household hazardous waste participation through MARC that allows our residents to participate at no cost in the household hazardous waste throughout the metropolitan area. And then the third is to maintain a fund balance to to continue to have funds in that fund as we move forward to pay those bills. We don't have a consistent number of residents or customers on a monthly, but we have a consistent, but it's not the exact same number. So those numbers change a little bit every month. And so we have funds available to be able to cover that. We also, as part of that GFL contract, Rick noted, we have additional services. So we have the flat charge or the charge to residents, but they also provide us the bulky item twice a year. the downtown recycling. We've called on them at some other times to provide additional services. When we've had storms, they've worked to provide dumpsters for debris pickup and things like that. All of those are included as part of those rates.
And the reality is there's a few dozen people that don't pay their bills and we still have to pay our bill every month. So we can't just make it 100% revenue neutral because some people don't pay their trash bill.
And just piggybacking a little bit on what Cynthia said, although the sanitation charge is in your utility bill, it is not part of the combined water and wastewater
Right.
fund. This is its own fund.
And we pay that one first when somebody pays a late bill?
Yes, if they are paying late, the sanitation fees get paid first.
Because that is a contractual
Right.
agreement that we have
With the
with our
line item.
provider to provide
And
their
water and
funds.
wastewater.
And Rick, what is the, with that being said, with that adjustment, what is the, hazardous, household hazardous waste program fee? It comes out
That
of
is based on per capita. I believe it was $1.13 capita per person.
FLMO.org.
For 25, I went back probably about 3 or 4 years. It hasn't increased. They haven't raised the rate more than like 2, sometimes 3%. So I fully expect it to be under, right around 13,000 for
Okay,
next year.
okay. So for the bills for Mark, right? Is that what you're
Right,
talking
that
about?
I had to scroll down. I had to go to meetings.
Hey, go to mute, James. Thanks.
Okay, I was just trying to see what the charge was per regular household and then also for seniors. I didn't know. Is that a difference
Household
as
hazardous
well?
waste is per capita. Number of households
Right.
doesn't matter.
And
It's-
that's
okay,
based
it doesn't
on
matter,
the
seniors.
number of customers. And we provide that number of customers to GFL every month.
Right, and so, but there's not the senior discount doesn't change that number, right?
That number
doesn't
is
change.
consistently, that's 15% less than the standard regular rate and does not change for the year.
We don't get a senior rate from GFL. We get a contractual amount. We work with them and we come up with a rate.
Right.
And then a 15% discount for the senior rate.
Okay, I'm with you on that, all that. I'm just asking that the amount that's taken out for hazardous waste program, is it different from regular to senior?
It's all one fund. It is one fund. It goes to a fund balance.
Right.
I
And
think he's,
then-
are you asking if
Un-
we get a lower rate? So the household hazardous waste is on a per capita basis. It's just the number of population. It doesn't matter if you're senior or not. It gets calculated as part of our overall cost to develop the rate.
Okay, so it wouldn't change. So what I'm getting is at 2107, right? There's a number that comes out of that, 47 cents, 37 cents, whatever it is, right?
Very, very minute.
So
small,
that,
yes.
is that's the same. It doesn't matter from senior to the other one, right? It's the same amount that's taken out.
That's 15% late.
Well, I mean, in
15%
theory,
less
it's
because
15%
part of what goes in the
less.
total
Oh,
rate.
yeah,
But we
okay,
aren't,
okay.
looking at it at that. We're looking at the contract total. GFL knows that we are discounting our seniors 15%. So they also
Okay.
are taking into consideration what we're doing as well. So that percent in theory is 15%
Doesn't matter.
less.
Okay, okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
But
That's
I
the
mean,
wrong way
like,
to-
that's literally
the answer I was
like
looking
10
for
cents a
there.
month.
But
It's
also,
confusing. It's a lot of information to come into play. We've got one rate based on households, one rate based on per person, all adding the information together. And then we also then do a reduction on those. So it's a lot of moving parts.
but there's also people like
And-
me that don't do home improvements or have chemicals that dispose of it, household hazardous waste. And then there's people that bring in an entire pickup truck bed completely full to the brim with their camper shell.
Absolutely.
And we're
And do it
subsidizing
here
them
and do it
just
at
as
the
well.
Doremus facility and
Yeah.
go to do it multiple times a year.
Yep.
With that, we also have the ability to go year round. There's 2 permanent facilities down in Kansas City.
2 permanent facilities and then the cities rotate. So some people
Right.
hit up all of them. There's always an opportunity to get rid of your paint or chemicals or whatever. Pool chemicals is a big one we kept seeing, right?
Pool chemicals has been a big, paints, paint is
Paint- paint
huge,
and-
paint,
yeah.
oil, it depends on the year. I mean,
Yeah.
I've done it a couple of years now and some of them, it's a lot of batteries and paint. pool chemicals. It
Light
just kind of
bulbs.
depends. Light bulbs can be.
People still have
Um,
those tube lights in their house.
But I also want to underscore, we've started the recycling bins out here and we are working with GFL based on discussion of the retreat to add sites for that. Those are all included in that total contract cost. So that $20.16 is a resident may not take advantage of bringing recycling to the bin here behind City Hall. But it's available.
See a lot less boxes in the ditches, especially on Eagle Parkway. Used to be really bad.
All right, last slide, just wrapping up, same as the last slide. This is just giving our final calendar for the budget this year for 2025.
And I'll jump in here after Rick makes that final comment. This is really the last piece of information and providing work session information to you all on development of the budget that we will be bringing forward to you all at the August 20th meeting. So 2 weeks from tonight, we'll have the 9-month update or third quarter update for our 2024 budget and have initial discussions on recommendations of the budget staff is bringing forward for you all's review based on the work that we've been doing since at a staff level before the retreat, and you all have been involved in a number of discussions on that beginning of the retreat and moving forward. So you'll see those included in the budget that we'll bring forward on the 20th. And I do, throughout the next several months, you'll hear this, but I do want to thank Rick, as well as staff in the finance department and department directors and staff throughout the organization on work in developing the budget, because it's a massive undertaking, as you all know.
Thank you. Entertain a motion to adjourn. Do you have a second?
Second, Mayor.
All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. We adjourn the work session. Give Linda a few seconds to flip on the new meeting, then we'll start the next one. So if you need to run to the bathroom, go quick.